There we go.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nina Stack, President of the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers. Welcome, as I just said, on this miserable, rainy afternoon, unfortunately. But it's great that you're all with us. As we are expecting about 18 people on the call, so I suspect that there might be some other beeps that come in because I don't think we have everyone yet. We will have representatives in terms of who registered. Of course, we've got our speakers from New Jersey Community Capital and the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund. But then among the funders who are joining us, we have UBS Private Wealth Management, Wells Fargo Foundation, Santander Bank, McMaster Carr, the United Way of Monmouth, the United Way of Ocean, Affinity Federal Credit Union Foundation, Ocean First Foundation, John Bon Jovi Soul Foundation, and Bank of America. We also have some representatives from long-term recovery groups joining us who have registered. So really pleased to have everybody with us, and I just want to again, I want to add my thanks to Kim Frawley and the folks at the Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund for letting me know about this opportunity and for working with us to put together a webinar so that we could share the information to everyone. Those of you who attended our annual meeting got a two-page flyer about the GAP funding initiative, and we hoped, and I guess since you're with us, it successfully whetted your appetite to learn more as we see this as a great opportunity for funders to re-engage if they haven't been as involved in the Sandy recovery in recent months, or to continue, and particularly if housing is a focus. And I think it goes without saying, but I'm going to go ahead and say it, that the housing issues are the central recovery concern, and that everything sort of spins off of that. And we're going to learn more about that today, I'm sure. So I will tell you that just a little bit of ground rules for the calls. We're muting for the webinar at this point. And if you have a question, please use the chat function that you'll see on the screen. And then there'll also be plenty of time for questions at the end. We'll unmute then at the end and to have folks come in. But if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to post your question in the chat section, and it'll go to the presenters. I want to thank Craig Weinrich, who is the master at the controls today, fielding everything. And with that, it's my great pleasure to turn it over to Kim Frawley from the Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. I first really want to start by thanking Nina and Craig and all the other people at the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers for your leadership throughout the Sandy recovery process. It's really been tremendous, and we're so grateful for the leadership role that you've played. And I also want to thank you for this opportunity to speak about the ongoing needs for additional support and resources to help New Jersey families return home. It is the predominant and overwhelming need, and we're excited about this program and to tell you more. So as you know, the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund has been solely focused on the Sandy recovery for the past 2 years. It's what we work on and think about every single day as we work and partner with the 106 organizations that we've supported over the last 2 years. And the largest support that we've provided has been directed to the GAP funding initiative. We have invested $6.2 million, which has helped hundreds of families return home. And it's really been a standout program for us. And as I've reflected about the program, I've summarized it as 4 key critical C's. We've had a capable partner, we've had tremendous collaboration, we've had great communication, and we've got solid program controls. And I just want to speak briefly about the 4 C's. When it comes to a capable partner, New Jersey Community Capital has really been just a tremendous partner and is such a strong organization. As many of you know, they're the largest community development financial institution in the state, and they have a very talented staff with great skills and ability to work with diverse stakeholders. They not only know their financial stuff, but they also are very skilled in working with homeowners who called in very stressed out and needing assistance and counseling and information. They've been terrific in working with the funders, ourselves and the American Red Cross, as well as a diversity of people at the State House, both involved in the RIM program and the Department of Community Affairs. So that's quite a diverse group of people, and they've worked with across the lines very skillfully. And collaboration is the second C, and this program would not have been possible without the cross-sector collaboration with the DCA, with the Governor's Office on Recovery and Rebuilding, with NJCC and the American Red Cross. Often it's difficult to bring organizations together, and it does take a lot of extra work and time, but at the end it's always worth it. And I think this program is an example of that. Each partner has had a very specific role to play and has invested significant time to develop and refine and to operate the program, and it's really it's paying off dividends. And the third C is communication. Communication, as you know, in every partnership and every program is key. And I think New Jersey Community Capital is quite skilled at this, and not only communicating effectively with the homeowners and applicants to the program, but they've also had tremendous and terrific communication with the DCA. They work with the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, on a weekly basis, and we've been working with them and having weekly conference calls for the past year and a half. So they've kept us very informed and engaged, and has really kept us informed each step of the way. So their communication skills about the program and how it's changed and how we've needed to adapt the program has really been a key contributor to its success. And lastly, controls. The program is tight, and it's got efficient controls in place that have really enabled us in the program more broadly to help 700 people with fairly limited overhead. So I'm very, very pleased with the controls. When you're talking about large grants and large sums of money, it's really important to have very significant controls in place, and a lot of time and effort has been put in place to make sure that those controls are there. So that's another key asset to the program. So the program's really, though, about people, and today you're going to hear a little bit about Donna, who wouldn't have been able to return home without the support of the Gap Funding Initiative. And unfortunately, there are many, many more like Donna who still need your help. So I want to thank you for your interest, and thank you for your time today in learning more about the program and how you could potentially help bring more families home. And I'd like to introduce my colleagues at New Jersey Community Capital and the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund, who will be available to answer questions at the end of the call and the presentation. With us today we have Wayne Meyer, who is the President of New Jersey Community Capital, Cara Purcell, who's been the Gap Funding Initiative Program Officer, Peter Groff, who's the Deputy to the President at New Jersey Community Capital, Wayne Meyer, and Eileen LaFries, the Communications Director and Program Officer at Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund. So it's my great pleasure to hand it over to Wayne, who's going to describe this homecoming project, the Gap Funding Initiative, in more detail. Wayne?
Oh, thank you so much, Kim, and Happy New Year to everybody. First, let me say that it's been an absolute privilege for New Jersey Community Capital to participate in this program. We have been involved in a number of different Sandy recovery efforts, and I think by far this has been the most impactful, and it's helped so many families, especially the most vulnerable in their communities. You know, right after the storm hit, we had reached out to a lot of our partners and stakeholders, and we all heard two things. One was, of course, there was business disruption and business continuity, but the real issue was around housing displacement, and finding housing solutions to help those displaced residents are really something that is so critically important. And really, I really want to thank Kim and Eileen and the Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund for really their extraordinary leadership in identifying what they saw as a gap in housing recovery, and helping to create this program and funding it and being fully supportive of it. It's been really just a remarkable program. So I want to thank you, and Nina, also thank you, and New Jersey Council of Grantmakers for your support. So briefly, what is the Gap Funding Initiative? Well, the Gap Funding Initiative is a $16 million program that offers housing assistance grants of up to $20,000 to eligible homeowners to help them repair their Sandy damaged homes. We launched this program, with the help of Kim and the Relief Fund in 2013, with funding from the Relief Fund and the American Red Cross. And it was really designed specifically to assist those homeowners participating in the state's Reconstruction, Rehabilitation, Elevation, and Mitigation, or the REM program, where the rebuilding costs exceeded the rehabilitation assistance they received from sources such as insurance, FEMA, and REM. And just very briefly, there's 3 basic eligibility requirements to participate in the GFI program. The first is that, of course, it had to be an approved REM funding grant agreement in place. Secondly, that there had to be an unmet need. In other words, that where there was cost of construction exceeded the resources that were available to the particular homeowner. And last, and a really important part of this, that applicant households must have had an annual adjusted gross income of $100,000 or less, or have met the criteria of low moderate income household as determined by the REM program. And I think this is really important because what this program has really done has really seen the most in need and the most vulnerable in their communities, help them get back into their home. Craig, thank you for going to slide 3. So here's how GFI works. Based on the data that we've received, and we have processed, and Cara and her team, who have done a remarkable job, have processed over 1,400 applications. And what we have seen is that the average cost to rebuild is roughly about $241,000, which really represents 6 times what the awardee's annual adjusted gross income is. So you could see that there was a real financial burden in terms of doing that. Fortunately, the homeowners did have some access to rebuilding fund through sources such as insurance, FEMA, the SBA, and of course the REM grant. And the average of those sources, except for the REM grant, were $56,000. But even after the homeowner received their REM grant of $150,000, there was still a gap that was there. And the average gap on those particular homeowners were still facing, say, a $35,000 gap. Once you take the $241,000 cost to rebuild, less the $150,000 REM award, rest the $56,000 in insurance and other resources. So this is where the GFI comes into play to help fill this gap. So after receiving a $20,000 GFI award, the average homeowner would still be, only need roughly $15,000 in personal funds to rebuild their homes. Now, clearly, $15,000, is maybe a challenge for the homeowners, but this is a far more achievable goal than it would have been without the GFI's assistance. So, Craig, if you don't mind going to the next home. So, Kim referenced Donna from Little Lake Harbor, and Donna really is and again, I think illustrative of the homeowners that we have talked to and we have tried to help through this program. So Donna lives in Little Lake Harbor. The night that Sandy had hit, she stayed at a family member's home. She waited for the storm to pass. And when she returned home, I don't think she was prepared for what she saw and the extent of the devastation. Her house was in total arrears. It was totally destroyed. Her refrigerator was thrown across the kitchen. And within 3 days, her one-family home began to even sink. So like many other Sandy-impacted homeowners, Donna barely had time to process things. Her first thing, obviously, was to try to get stabilized housing. She had to find a place for her and her son. She's a single mom. So following the storm, her and her son moved, I believe, 4 times from hotels to condos. And even after they found a rental, she tells a story, Donna, about her son would never really even take the clothes out of her plastic bag, figuring that they were just going to keep moving around. So, despite the devastation, Donna, was hopeful that her insurance would help get her back in the home. But as it turned out, she only received $83,000, which was far less than the $270,000 that she needed to rebuild. And so after more than a year of making both mortgage payments, she continued to pay her mortgage on her home. She continued to make rental payments. And just when she was about to lose hope, things started to come together when Donna was approved for the REM program, which she was approved for $150,000 in grants. But despite the $150,000 in grant, she still found herself $37,000 short. So at that point in time, the GFI program was awarding grants of up to $30,000. We were able to award Donna a $30,000 grant. Now, thanks to the GFI and the REM grant, Donna's house is almost complete, and her and her son expect to move into their home in the next few weeks. So they are unpacking and looking forward to resuming their lives and living in the home that they love. So, Craig, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So to date, the statistics are, I think are important to understand. I mean, Donna's story is similar to the other 737 grants we've approved. You can see so far we have approved 737 grants. We have provided $15.9 million in housing assistance. We are serving roughly through this program over 1,500 New Jersey residents. And I think a really important element of this and what we've talked about is that the average income for the awardees is 79% of the median income. So they're considered to be low to moderate income households. The median annual income of the people that we have served is roughly about $38,000. So clearly many of these households would have been unable to fill their gaps and complete their homes without GFI. To give you an idea of leverage, to give you an idea of impact, really this, if you think about it, this $16 million in housing assistance was just so generously supported by the Relief Fund and the Red Cross have leveraged, been able to unlock, if you will, over $115 million of REM grants from the state DCA that without this $60 million, it would have been hard to imagine how that $150 million really would have been deployed and gotten people back into their homes. So, Craig, if you don't mind just switching to the next slide. So, as I started to talk at the beginning, finding housing solutions to those displaced by disasters like Sandy, is hard. And it takes a long time to figure them out. We're now 2 years plus out from Sandy, and a lot of the cameras and stuff have maybe moved on. But when the people don't have and families don't have a secure place to live, for them the disaster continues. Furthermore, most of the people still in need are the ones that are most vulnerable in their communities. So in our situation here, we still have 256 eligible homeowners on our wait list. In order to help those people, we're going to need another $4.5 million in grants. The average income for those people in that are on our waiting list are 69% of the median income for the particular area. So clearly they're the most vulnerable in our community. So more homeowners need our help, and we're hopeful that that some of our funders here can find their way to assist us to get more people back in the homes. We're hoping that you'll consider to join this cause with us, and I want to thank you again for taking the time here today. At this point, I think what we'll do is open up for discussions, and Kim and I and our New Jersey Community Capital team would be happy to answer any questions that you have. So
the conference has been unmuted.
This is Wayne and Kim. I want to thank you so much. Oh, wait, no. This is what I'm doing wrong. This is, sorry. Nina, I want to thank you both so much for this great information. And I had a couple of sort of clarifying questions, maybe just to get things a little started a little. On your wait list, you talked about that. So is there a sort of criteria of income level to get onto your wait list?
Yes. So applicants are eligible for this program if they make their adjusted gross income is $100,000 or less, or they meet the definition of a low to moderate income household as determined by the REM program.
Okay.
So yes, so we have a very specific income limitation. So we actually closed our application period on October 31st, 2014, and the 256 homeowners are ones that had made the application deadline, but now are on our wait list because we are currently out of funding.
Right. So you haven't taken any more applications since October 31st.
That's correct.
And with those, you've got 256 that are on the wait list that way. And so that there could be far more out there that if there were more funds available and you had the ability to reopen the application.
I don't think there's any question about
Yeah.
that. Yep.
Right. Right.
We get calls every day here in New Jersey Community Capital through our call center, and our phones ring constantly, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But yes, so we know that there are other people who are hopeful to get on the waiting list.
Are there any, I know over the past few months there have been some conversations among some funders of kind of alternative investment options. I know I'm probably not articulating that well, but sort of not your typical way of kind of pooling investment dollars. Is that anything that makes sense with this kind of program, or? I guess maybe I'm merging some of the different work that New Jersey Community Capital does.
Yeah, I think so, because we have another program where we have acquired properties with the goal of trying to keep people in their homes.
That's probably what I'm right.
Where the houses are vacant, we try to repurpose them as affordable housing for residents displaced by Sandy as a priority.
So, but that's a different program, and that's what I'm muddying those waters. Okay, I apologize.
No worries.
So we want to encourage any questions, anything with regard to process, or that any of the folks on the call, any of our members might have.
Wayne, hi. This is Maria Tanzola calling from UBS Private Wealth Management. How are you?
Hi, Marie. How are you today?
Good, thanks. If I could just ask a clarifying question, I guess. So,
sure.
this GFI grant program is that separate and apart from the long-term recovery group gap funding?
Yes.
It is.
It's
okay.
a private. Yes. This is a private pool of resources that were brought together and funded by the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund and Kim's organization, and also the American Red Cross.
And so at this point in time, you have a specific dollar amount that you've identified that you need to fulfill the members on your wait list?
Yes. Based on we've actually processed all those applications already on the 256, and our gap for them is right now $4.5 million.
Okay.
And actually, the average income of those families that are on there are a little less than actually the ones that we've been funded so far. So they're families clearly in the low to moderate income category.
And prospective funders that are interested in helping you fill this gap, they are able to make a grant or a charitable contribution directly to you? Directly to your organization, or how would that work?
Yes. So yes. So they make a contribution, and what we do is we earmark those funds for this particular program. So as I mentioned, the Hurricane Sandy Fund and also the American Red Cross, contributed this money. Actually, it's for this particular purpose. Yes.
So it's tax deductible. It works with grants. It's different than other sort of investment models that you have going. But this is for a foundation. It's not like there has to be any The word just went right out of my head. But it's not like we're not talking like a PRI or anything like that.
No.
This is a straight grants are very appropriate for this.
Yes,
Great.
and we pass those funds directly to the homeowners. We actually manage the program and serve as the disbursement conduit for the program.
And this is Kim Frawley. If the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund can be helpful, we're happy to be a pass-through organization. I think it's great. The first choice would be to give to New Jersey Community Capital first. But if it makes sense to go through the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund, we're happy to do that. We're speaking with them on a biweekly basis now and have an active grant that's in action where we've got the monitoring and evaluation all set up. So if we can be helpful, we're happy to serve that role as well.
That's a great idea, Kim. Thank you.
So Wayne, this is Mimi Box with the John Bon Jovi Soul Foundation.
Hi, Mimi. Good
Hi.
afternoon.
So just a couple also clarification points.
Sure.
So the applications, the 256 that are on the wait list, each have had their case analyzed, and up to $20,000 has been more or less designated as what they would need in order to fulfill the gap that they're experiencing. Is that correct?
Cara?
Hi, this is Cara Purcell. Just to jump in on that. So yes, they've all been analyzed, and we have assessed their gaps. Just to clarify, in some cases, they would be eligible for 20, but that would not fully fill their gap, and there would be some additional homeowners contribution that would need to go in, like in the case that we provided with Donna. In other cases, actually, they may not need the full 20. Some people only need $10,000 to fill their gap. So the grant amount is up to 20, but there are cases where the gap can be filled at a lower amount, and then obviously it would be that lower amount that we are considering.
All right, great. That's where I was headed, whether the
Yeah.
20,000 in some instances might still not be enough. So
Yeah, I would say in most cases the 20,000 is not enough. I mean, even in the case you saw with Donna, that was back when we were able to provide $30,000 grants, and that wasn't always enough. But it does at least help generally get to a little bit more manageable place. But yeah, there's still definitely needs beyond that. That's for sure.
And then the second part of that question was, do we have any knowledge as to the number of REM cases that were pending as of your cutoff of October 31st? To maybe get some idea as to what the need that really hasn't had their case reviewed yet is that's out there.
I don't have that information with me, although that is something, I mean, I work with the DCA almost daily, so I believe that's data that I could get from them.
That would be helpful to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do, just from our call volume, I mean, we get at least a few calls a day of people that are really devastated that they're not even going to make it on the wait list. So I know that it is still continuing. If the homeowners hadn't had their initial REM grant signing, which is where they get their construction estimates, which is the document that we use for the construction estimates, they wouldn't have been able to apply before that deadline. And I know that there are a lot of homeowners that are very upset about that. So I'm sure that there's a significant number, and that is something that I think we could get from REM.
I assume it's not an issue that if you had a funder who wanted to specifically help, say in Union County, and they awarded the funds to the relief fund, that could happen?
Yes. I mean, the way we tried to design this program initially was with exactly that in mind, where particular funders might have had particular geographic locations they were focused on, or even income levels they were focused on. I would just mention, just because you mentioned Union County, of the 256 households that we have on our list, only 2 right now are from Union County. I'm not
Right,
sure if
that's-
that's yeah.
I can see that. That's what I was
yeah.
looking at, and
Okay.
but that's
Yeah.
what I was wondering. That it seems like that's it just we do have some place-based funders that are specific to specific counties or specific towns or whatnot, and so that just sort of offered me some thinking of to alert them.
Yep. Yes. Thank you for that question.
We have a question from the chat window. What happens if someone on the wait list cannot fill their gap after the GFI? Is the grant returned?
So it differs a little bit depending on the specific situation. I don't know how familiar you guys are. Probably pretty familiar with the REM program, given the work that you're doing. But the REM program has 2 different pathways you can go. One is where you use a state-assigned contractor. One is where you use your own contractor. Under the path where you use a state contractor, you actually can't start construction until money has been deposited into your escrow account in full. And in those cases, if the homeowner is not able to fill their remaining contribution, they never reach the point of getting our funds deposited into that escrow, so they never reach the point of starting construction. And we do have an expiration date on our awards, so in that case, the money would, essentially the award would eventually expire if they were not able to come up with those remaining funds. With a case where a homeowner is using their own contractor, it's a little bit different. We are putting our funds out following the REM funds, so the homeowner would have needed to demonstrate that they had fulfilled, they had used all of their $150,000 from REM, so they'd done a substantial amount of work already that REM had approved and paid for, and then they could access our funds for the next 20. Once the funds are out there, they are out there, but they definitely have a motivation after they've done that amount of work to complete the home. And additionally, if they don't complete the home, then they're facing some covenants and things on their property from the REM program, because the REM program has restrictions.
I think the REM program actually has a holdback, I think, for the homeowner to have a CO before the final REM payment is paid. So if your funds are following the REM money, then the house has been completed sufficient to be lived in. I think
that might be something that they've recently added in. I know that wasn't always in place, because there are definitely people that we've funded that have already received all 150, but I think that is something that they may have put in place at a certain point, which would benefit us, definitely.
Carla, this is Kim. Can you also just share the information about the documentation that comes in with Pathway B, that once they have showed that they fully expended all the REM funding, how it works for the Pathway B applicant?
Sure. So I'll actually say Pathway C first, just because it's easier and faster. So I'm going
to ask you to explain what the pathways are.
Okay, sure. So Pathway C, again, I'm going backwards with the alphabet, but Pathway C is essentially when you use a state contractor, a state-assigned contractor, which is one of, I believe it's 3 contractors that they've specifically put in place to manage these programs and these projects, the mortgage general contractor. That is a case where, since the state is managing everything, they require the homeowner to put all of their funds into escrow before construction starts. And that's the pathway that we had initially designed this program around, because initially that was the only pathway. And in that situation, we do not deposit our funds into the escrow account until the homeowner has gotten to a certain point in the process where they've established where the other funding is coming from. They have a construction agreement in place. They know their final costs, and they've signed an escrow agreement. We get those documents directly from the state. We fund based off of those documents into escrow, and we have an agreement for services with the state that governs, how they will be managing that money for us, that our money will go into the project last, and if any funds end up not being needed, that they will come back to us within a certain time frame. Under Pathway B, it's really that the homeowner is identifying their own contractor, so they have a little bit more control. They select the contractor that they want to use, and they serve as, they either hire a contractor to serve as the general the general contractor, or the homeowner serves as the general contractor themselves and hires subcontractors. They do have to have their contractors essentially approved by the state. The state does something they call contractor validation, and they look into the fact that they're appropriately licensed and things like that before they approve that contractor to do the work, even when the homeowner's subing the contractor themselves. In that situation, we approve a maximum award amount. I should also point that out. We always approve a maximum, but if the costs come back and they don't end up meeting it, they get the amount is actually required to complete the repairs. When they have completed, in this case, assuming it was a $20,000 GFI award, essentially the homeowner in that case with their own contractor would need to complete $170,000 worth of work. They would then provide a request for payment to us, and that request for payment would need to include things like their construction contracts and invoices demonstrating that they've been invoiced for that dollar amount of work. We also get a letter from the state, from the DCA, that then confirms that they did indeed pay out the $150,000, and it indicates which contractors they had validated and approved to do work for that homeowner. So we're then able to use that letter from the state to compare it against the request from the homeowner. And then we would only be funding invoices from contractors that the state had approved as being eligible to do this type of work. And that had been invoices that had come from those contractors, and we would only put our money out after we had seen that the state had put out their $150,000.
I just have to admit, I often feel like I really want a scorecard to keep track of things.
The joke in our office is, if we start talking about Pathway B, then it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. One of the things that you had mentioned that there are weekly calls from DCA on the GAP initiative. Did I hear that wrong? I think Wayne, you had said something.
We don't have weekly scheduled calls at the DCA, although I have a specific contact at the DCA that I probably speak to more than weekly, because they also verify data and things for us prior to our approving people. So we have almost daily communication with our contact at the DCA, but those are not scheduled calls. The weekly calls we're probably referencing the calls that we have with the funders. We used to have weekly calls scheduled with the American Red Cross and the Hurricane Sandy New Jersey Relief Fund to keep them updated. We've now switched to bi-weekly calls, but we do speak to them very frequently.
That's what that was. I didn't know if DCA was having sort of public calls that we hadn't heard about, so I wasn't sure.
No.
I do have, excuse me, one other question from the chat window, and that is, it was asking you how long it took you, NJCC, to distribute the $60 million in funds to assist those grants that you sent out.
It hasn't all been distributed. It's all been reserved and approved for these homeowners. It's distributed kind of either at the time of funding an escrow account for a Pathway C person, or at the time that they've completed, essentially $170,000 worth of repairs for a Pathway B applicant. And many homeowners, understandably, aren't really looking to move forward with the construction until they have the funding in place. So a lot of people are still under construction, but these are the grants that are approved and that the money is held for. And under Pathway C, it's held for 6 months to fund the escrow, and under Pathway B, homeowners have a year to complete their work. We have, however, distributed about a third of the funds have actually been dispersed.
Great. Other questions, ideas? I just want to mention that we have recorded this PowerPoint, and it will be uploaded to our website along with the entire library of all of the calls and webinars that we've done since that first Monday after Hurricane Sandy hit. and we're still hoping to do some written summaries of all of those. So that's on our docket. The playbook that many of you have heard about is in the works, and the work on that continues. And so that I suspect that's going to be released this summer on that. But and then of course we did do a scan on working with the Foundation Center and our colleagues at Philanthropy New York on philanthropic giving. I will share the link to this with our colleagues around the country and ask at other regional associations and ask that if they have members who are housing focused, that this is a great opportunity to leverage some of their funding that way, so that for others who may not be aware of it, and that it is a program where they can have a lot of impact for not a whole lot of money in supporting that. Kim or Wayne, other thoughts at this point? Anything you want to be sure to leave folks with?
Just to say thank you again for taking the time today. This Council of Grantmakers and its members are really important parts of the grant-making community, and we're hoping that you'll consider participating with this important cause and helping to get families back in their homes. And I would just add to what Nina was saying, if you have any other contacts within the corporate community or whatever, of anyone else that you think would want to participate, please feel free to share our information with them. And lastly, of course, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions, or if you'd like to discuss some of the program further. We'd be more than glad to spend time and educating everyone and updating everyone on the various nuances of the program. So again, thank you, and again, Nina, Craig, and Kim and her amazing team at the Hurricane Sandy Fund. Thank you so much.
Sure. I'd like to jump in as well to say a big thanks to everyone for taking the time to learn more about this opportunity. And as a funder, I think we all often hear about great ideas to potentially fund, but often those ideas don't get implemented well. And this is a great example of a great idea that's been implemented exceedingly well. And it's taken a lot of time to get there. It's taken a lot of time and tweaking and relationship building with all the partners and players. But I, as a funder, am just so proud and pleased with how far this team has come and the work that you've accomplished, and cannot give it a higher recommendation to other funders that are considering this, and happy to answer questions or be a resource to anyone that may be considering this. So again, thank you for your time and for your partnership and for the consideration. We greatly appreciate it.
Great. Well, if there aren't any other questions at this stage, know that the presentation is available. We're happy to send that out, and the contact information for Kim and of course for Wayne and his team at New Jersey Community Capital, particularly Peter Groff, is there also in the material. It's up on the screen now, but anything that we can do to help folks with that. And if there's nothing else, then we'll say thank you and stay dry and warm and safe. And we'll see everyone soon, I hope.
All right. Thanks so much, Nina.
Happy New Year,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.